Stop scrolling. I need you to listen to this very carefully. On the night of March 4th, 2026, one of the most famous women in the entire world was handcuffed on the side of a California highway, alone, in the dark, inside a black BMW. No bodyguard, no assistant, no one. Just Britney Spears and the flashing lights of a police car behind her. And then, the very next morning, she deleted her Instagram, vanished from the internet, complete silence. No statement, no video, no explanation. Now ask yourself this: why would someone who has spent the last 3 years finally living free, finally free from her father, finally free from the conservatorship that controlled every single aspect of her life for 13 years, why would that person suddenly end up handcuffed on a freeway at 9:30 at night? What is really going on with Britney Spears? That is exactly what we're going to find out today. Stay with me, because this story goes much deeper than just a DUI, much deeper. And if you are new here, hit that subscribe button right now, because this is the kind of story we cover. Real, deep, no fluff. Let's get into it. Part 1. The night of March 4th, 2026. Let us start from the very beginning, from the moment everything went wrong. It is the night of March 4th, 2026, a Tuesday night, the 101 freeway in Ventura County, California, one of the busiest highways in the state. Cars moving fast, lights everywhere. At 8:48 p.m., someone calls 911. They report a black BMW 430i driving erratically on the freeway, speeding, swerving, dangerous. The caller is concerned, and they are right to be concerned. The California Highway Patrol responds immediately. They locate the vehicle near Westlake Boulevard. They pull it over, and when the officer walks up to the driver's window, they find Britney Spears alone. Now think about that image for a second. Britney Spears, one of the best-selling music artists in human history, a woman who sold over 100 million records worldwide, a woman whose face has been on magazine covers since she was a teenager, sitting alone in a car on a dark highway, being asked to step out of the vehicle. The officer observes what they describe as signs of impairment. Britney is asked to perform a field sobriety test right there on the side of the road in the dark. She does not pass. She is placed under arrest, handcuffed at 9:30 p.m., and by 3 a.m. the next morning, she has been formally booked into Ventura County Jail on suspicion of DUI. Not just alcohol. The arrest report mentions suspicion of driving under the influence of both alcohol and drugs combined. By 6 a.m. the next morning, she is released. The entire thing, from arrest to release, happens while most of America is asleep. But the internet never sleeps, and by morning, the whole world knows. Part 2. The hospital and the blood test. Here's something that most coverage of this story glossed over, and I think it matters. After her arrest, Britney Spears was not taken directly to jail. She was taken to a hospital first. Why? Because in DUI cases where drug involvement is suspected, not just alcohol, law enforcement requires a blood draw, a blood test that can accurately measure what substances were in a person's system at the time of arrest, and in what quantities. This is more comprehensive than a breathalyzer. A breathalyzer only tells you about alcohol. A blood test tells you everything. And here's what that means for this case. The results of that blood test will determine exactly what charges Britney Spears ultimately faces. If the blood test shows a blood alcohol content above the legal limit of 0.08, that's a clear DUI. If it shows prescription drugs, illegal substances, or a combination, the charges could be more complicated. As of right now, those blood test results have not been publicly released. What we do know is this: Britney Spears is due in Ventura County Superior Court on May 4th, 2026. That court date is when this story gets its next major chapter. Part 3. The Instagram deletion. This is the part nobody is talking about. Okay, now we get to the part that I cannot stop thinking about. The morning after her arrest, Britney Spears deleted her Instagram. Gone. Account deactivated. Millions of followers gone. Years of posts gone. The account where she danced, where she shared her life, where she spoke directly to her fans without any filter, gone. Now, why does this matter so much? Because you have to understand what Instagram meant to Britney Spears. During the conservatorship, those 13 13 years where her father, Jamie Spears, controlled her finances, her career, her personal life, her medical decisions, Britney had almost no way to speak directly to the public. Everything was filtered. Everything was controlled. She couldn't even speak freely to her own lawyer. When the conservatorship ended in November 2021, one of the first things Britney did was use her social media to speak freely, openly, sometimes raw, sometimes chaotic, but always her voice, her choice. That Instagram account wasn't just a social media profile. For Britney Spears, it was a symbol of freedom, and the morning after her arrest, she deleted it. That's not normal behavior. That's not what someone does when they're fine. That's not what someone does when this is just a minor legal inconvenience. Something is going on with Britney Spears, something deeper than a DUI. Part 4. The conspiracy theory that is not entirely crazy. I want to be very careful here. I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm saying this is what people close to Britney are saying, and given the history of this woman's life, I think it deserves to be taken seriously. Britney's former assistant, Sean Phillip, came out publicly after the arrest, and what he said was striking. He called the timing of this arrest suspicious. Here's what he pointed to. Just recently, Britney Spears completed the sale of her music catalog, a catalog worth an estimated $200 million. For the first time in her adult life, Britney has real, substantial, independent financial power, money that no one can control, money that belongs entirely to her. And then, immediately after that, she gets arrested. Sean Phillip asked publicly, is this a coincidence, or is someone trying to use this arrest as a reason to revisit the question of whether Britney Spears can manage her own life? Because here's the legal reality. A DUI arrest, especially one involving allegations of drug use, can be used in court as evidence that a person is not capable of making sound decisions for themselves. It can be used to argue that someone needs a guardian, a conservator. In other words, it can be used to bring back exactly the situation that Britney fought for years to escape. Now, is that what's going to happen? Probably not. The conservatorship was a massive legal battle that ended after enormous public and legal pressure. Reinstating something like that would be extremely difficult. But the fact that people close to Britney are raising these questions, the fact that her own former assistant is using the word suspicious, tells you something about the level of trust that exists around the people in Britney's life. And it tells you something about how fragile freedom can feel when you've spent 13 years without it. Part 5. Who is Britney Spears in 2026? Let's zoom out for a second, because I think a lot of younger viewers may not fully understand the weight of what Britney Spears has been through. Britney Spears became famous as a teenager. She was 17 years old when Baby One More Time came out and changed pop music forever. By the time she was in her 20s, she was one of the most famous human beings on planet Earth, not just in America, on the planet. And with that level of fame came an unimaginable amount of pressure. Tabloid scrutiny, paparazzi following her every move, public breakdowns broadcast for entertainment, a media culture that treated her mental health struggles as content. In 2008, at one of the lowest points of her life, a court placed Britney Spears under a conservatorship, a legal arrangement typically used for elderly people with severe dementia or individuals who are completely unable to care for themselves. Her father, Jamie Spears, was given control over her finances, her career, and her personal decisions. For 13 years, Britney Spears, a grown adult woman, could not make basic decisions about her own life without her father's approval. The Free Britney movement grew. Fans rallied. Documentaries were made. The world started paying attention. And in November 2021, after years of legal battles and one of the most emotional court testimonies in recent memory, the conservatorship was terminated. Britney was free. But freedom, especially after 13 years of control, is complicated. It doesn't come with an instruction manual, and the world that Britney stepped back into was not the same world she remembered. So, where does this leave us? Britney Spears has a court date on May 4th, 2026. The blood test results will likely play a major role in determining what charges she faces and how serious those charges are. Her Instagram remains deleted. She has made no public statement. Her representative has acknowledged the arrest and called it inexcusable, but that's all. The people around her are divided. Some are worried, some are angry, some are raising questions about the circumstances of the arrest, and some are simply hoping that Britney gets the support she clearly needs. Because here's what I believe, and I think many of you watching this will agree: Britney Spears is not a villain in this story. She's not a cautionary tale. She's not content. She's a human being, a woman who has been through more than most of us can imagine, a woman who fought for years to control her own life, a woman who, whatever happened on that highway on March 4th, deserves compassion, not mockery, support, not spectacle. Whatever she's going through right now, she's going through it, and she's going through it in front of the entire world. That's the full story as we know it today. Britney Spears, arrested on the 101 freeway, blood test pending, court date set for May 4th, Instagram deleted, and a million questions